Good morning. It's Thursday, March 19th, and yeah, figured I'd do a little bit of market analysis this morning. It's uh, it's kind of the interesting times that we're living in right now, but business is a little bit slower for me personally, and I think everywhere is kind of, if you're a small business, then it's going to be a little bit slower, which just gives us some more time to do some other stuff. So I think I'm going to take a shift in gears here and take a look at some cryptocurrency since closed out my TD Bank position. I guess we could look at this. I mean, you can always look like a genius or an idiot in a few days. Like we'll see how this plays out. I mean, but yeah, 52, 23. I mean, I'm happy selling it at 58. I could buy right back in right now and be a lot better off. I mean, not that that's what I'm going to do, but regardless, I'm going to just take a look at Bitcoin here because this is something that I've been involved in for quite some long time, and it's always been pretty interesting. And zooming out, you can see some of this broader time frame. Bitcoin's not a very old asset. It's only this only has data from 2013. I think it's Bitcoin was created during the 2008 2009 housing market crash, and it really well. I can't speak for the creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, or anything, or whoever did create it, but some of the ideals that were placed into Bitcoin was somewhat of a sovereign financial means of exchange between the public so that we weren't so restrained or controlled by the governing powers of our countries. And yeah, when they can just print money out of thin air, it kind of devalues the hard work of each one of us. So that's where it kind of can get, if you're a somewhat of a freedom or a libertarian, freedom enthusiast, yeah, I think it attracts to a lot of the cyber kind of punk people and anyone that just advocates freedom. So back in 2017, we had this giant bull run, and that's when I got exposed here, and I got in at I think 2000. No, never mind. I mean, I started buying increments like all the way up here, and then I held all the way. I've held ever since. So this was my first big market experience between going through a bull market and then subsequent living through the bear market. And I can tell you, yeah, I mean, I seen a couple thousand turn into tens of thousands, and then seen those tens of thousands return to, if not less than the couple thousand that I did put into them. Most people were expecting Bitcoin to follow this somewhat longer term trend line. Um, you can see it has supported it more or less throughout the whole time. I guess when we zoom out here, this is a day-to-day frame. I mean, I think it looks a little bit better on, let's say the monthly. But it's not perfect either. And I guess these big wicks here are tough to include in this particular data set. So with this next drop down here, I guess this line I drew, this had made its new bottom. But yeah, no one really forecast that Bitcoin would have such a drastic decline. This candle right here, everyone was kind of thinking we're gonna have a bounce here and can kind of continue to trickle up and start this whole next bull cycle. But markets are indeed unpredictable, so it's tough to, yeah. And this date is the halvening. No, never mind. That's wrong. April. Just in a couple months, we're supposed to have this happening. So, historically speaking, I mean, we have somewhat of an accumulative phase up to this, and then we can kind of start gaining momentum afterwards because the halvening is representative of a decrease in inflation of the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin does produce more than what is currently as is right now, but that rate of inflation or that rate of production of Bitcoin, it decreases by half every so often. And when that happens, well, it's like they stop printing more Canadian dollars or they stop printing more American dollars. So there's less supply out there, which makes whatever is there more valuable. So it should theoretically boost the price. So looking at this monthly scale, you can see that we have been kind of gaining momentum, and amidst this whole pandemic, global pandemic, I mean, we kind of seen the halt to that monthly momentum, but we'll see. We'll see what it can do. I mean, especially considering it's up 10% today. I mean, this could just be it could not be sustained, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, when I'm looking at assets to look at, this is always on the side of my eye. So looking at here the weekly, we could see that we had this momentum build up to this 10,000 level, and yeah, we kind of failed down. So on this weekly sense, we're coming back down here, and we're going to see if we go to the negative. But it looks like we had a pretty good catch right here, and it had some good momentum. So I'm not sure if it's just we're gaining some of this huge loss, or if we're actually having some confidence go back into the cryptocurrency market, because yeah, this was kind of an unprecedented drop. I mean, it shouldn't have happened. But you hear some people say that it's because of that Ponzi scheme. Plus Token sold their bag of cryptocurrency that they scammed off everyone, and just did it in the perfect timing that this COVID-19, so that they had the perfect black screen, so no one really knew exactly what's going on. But yeah, it's interesting. Well, you can say that. I mean, Bitcoin is in this parallel channel, but it's not going up right now. It's actually going. It's decreasing. It's a downward trend. So realistically, it's no one could really know how long this is going to play out in here. But we had this upward trend here too. So we were kind of hitting a pinnacle point. You can see that it was kind of bouncing within this triangle, and we're all expecting a move either up or down, and it looks like we came to the downside here. So when that happens, I mean, you might have some type of a drop, which we just had right here, and maybe we'll get kind of caught up like we did once upon a time here for a bit, and then have another little bounce back and continue along the trend. I mean, no one can predict the future, but you can see that we've had this bigger wave, and then the smaller wave, and then the smaller wave. So this in terms is kind of oscillating down, which just means that it's getting more potential to go back up, hopefully. And yeah, it's going to be tough to, really see what's going on, but you could look at this and say, if we ever break above here, on this sense, it looks like we kind of had a good break of momentum to the upside. And you can even do these trend lines on this kind of stuff. I mean, it isn't perfect, but when you're looking at 20 different factors and making a decision off of them, yeah, these can play a small percentage of a role. I mean, so it looks like the volatility, it was even higher back here, like the buy and sell action, and it's kind of decreased because it's just been kind of bearish, and no, people don't really sell their Bitcoin. I mean, so it just kind of died down, and I mean, you see the volume went up, it died down, and then it kind of went up right here. We had some people had to sell right there, obviously, to bring it down. So there's quite a bit of sell, and then we got caught right there. And then right here, right, someone just dumped this big red candle, so that could have been that Plus Token, right? I mean, that they had 1% of all the Bitcoin, so if they sold 100 million market value, it's yeah, that's what it can do to the price. I mean, it's it's not regulated. It's not as big as a market cap as bigger stocks, so volatility will be higher in this newer stage. So I guess right now, in terms of just like a zone where we're working within, I guess we have to say we're going between 10,000 and 4,000. So that's a pretty big range right now. Looks like, yeah, on the weekly sense, we're still having some downward momentum, but today we had a pretty nice candle. So let's just even look at it a little bit further. So today it looks like we're having the first little tick up here, and that doesn't mean sustained upward movement, not at all. But you can see here, like we had a couple tick ups right there, so we could have jumped in right there, only to fall off this huge cliff. So you can't use this as a definite thing. You can always look at the curve of the momentum, like I kind of said before, and when you see it kind of stop becoming sharp and flattening out. So right here, it was pretty flat to begin with. It's not too encouraging. Like right there, at least we have a little bit of a difference in that bar. So if you're super eager, you can look at these plays. I mean, for me, with just in loom of everything, it's pretty tough to be super bullish. I mean, I'm just doing a different strategy with this asset altogether, since I have a pretty tough barrier of entry and exit in Canada in terms of fees and cashing out's kind of a pain in the ass. So if you don't have to and you don't want to use Tether, I mean, usually you just kind of might dollar cost average because you really believe in the long term trend of these kind of assets. And well, that's still to be figured out if that's really true. So you can see when you draw those trend lines on the bigger month frames, they don't apply to the daily charts. So I'm just gonna try to get rid of some of this stuff. It's just looking a little bit messy, so my apologies. Just gonna delete that right there too. So yeah, it's kind of like TD Bank when it has a steep drop and there's not a lot of price action to know what's going on. So let's just zoom it in a little bit and see if we can get a little bit better of a idea. And well, you can always see like the little bit more of the specific price action when you zoom in the time. So it can give you, it always makes you want to fix your Elliott wave markers because they're never right. But I don't know if this is perfect either here, guys. So it's just something to try to get an idea like where we are, like in this this bear count. So on this, anytime we have a move to the downside, it's kind of nice to see if we are 5 waves down. But yeah, I wouldn't go and make big trades off of my Elliott wave counts. That's for darn sure. I'm just kind of thinking it could be like this. Have a super extended 5th wave. I'm not sure if that's right, but in the sake of time here, I'm not going to go into it too much, but let's just say hypothetically that was the case. With a lot of these, I mean, no one's certain when they're doing the Elliott wave counts. I mean, some people are way better than others, and I mean, besides that, there's a lot of little details that you break down each one of these. So each one of these subwaves has to have an ABC. So that one looks to be true, and that's how you can break them down a little bit more. I mean, if you're interested in that, I mean, you got to just do the work yourself. But right here, we could say maybe we're just doing something like this, where in loom of the current market setting, you can see, yeah, it looks almost like that TD Bank thing, and yeah, we continue to the downside here. So I'm not saying that Bitcoin will do the same. Like, I know that there'd be less reason for Bitcoin to pump right now because they don't have a government behind them to create stimulus to say we're scared that the economy is going to collapse, so we're going to pump in billions of dollars and aid the economy. So Bitcoin's a wild west. So when we see price action here, some people are putting their money in here. Some people are starting to say, hey, maybe this isn't the worst place to put your money during this time of uncertainty, or at least a portion of your money. So you can always say, like, what are you going to do with your Bitcoin when you have no food? It's like, well, what are you going to do with your gold when you have no food? At some point, nothing has much value unless it's edible in that sense. So I don't really worry about that. But you can kind of see maybe there's something to at least look at here with Bitcoin. I'm just going to delete some of this stuff because it's not... I wouldn't want to put my name and submit it on the test and say, yeah, that's my final answer. I definitely want to check on that a little bit more. But as of now, we have a bottom here at around 4,000. I guess we could say we have a little bit of a trend kind of line supporting. I don't like those big ones when it's a short time frame, so I'm just going to go use my arrow. And yeah, you could say we got a little bit of just short-term trend line kind of support right here, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see if it just kind of rolls over through here, but it would be nice. Let's say you can kind of see just on the short-term moving average, we're looking like we're getting support here too. So that's kind of a positive thing. I mean, over the last Well, yeah, this is the 3 hours. You can see that it's hugged it pretty quick. You haven't seen it jump above too much. I mean, so this is pretty minimal, but I'm just gonna change this to see if we can get a little bit more. Here we go. So here's a little bit more of something that you can see that it's respecting that a little bit. And you can see when we dropped away from it, we were nowhere near it, and here we just jumped above it. So it'd be interesting to see if we can keep supported here above this little trend line, the 55-day moving average on the 3 hour. You can see here on the daily, the 55, that, yeah, we're clearly away from it. I mean, we're around 8,000 right now, so it would be really crazy if we just wick back up. I mean, I wouldn't, take it out of the table, take it off the table, let's say, with Bitcoin, because this one is a little bit more unpredictable than most assets. So when you see this bar right here, like look at that bar on the day. You never know. That stuff does go the other way too, and that's why this is such an appealing asset to some people. So 42% in a day. I mean, I can tell you, man. I didn't really. I mean, you kind of just you condition yourself mentally when you get involved with cryptocurrency. Like when you stomach a loss from like 20,000 down to 3,000, sometimes you just don't get phased by these drops anymore. I mean, and sometimes you just kind of have to have that demeanor if you're going to be involved in the cryptocurrency space, and that's why you shouldn't be throwing 100% of your money, in my opinion, into these volatile assets. I mean, these are the assets that high risk, high reward. I mean, this stuff can give you multiple time gains in a short period of time, but also you can lose 90% of your value within a few months too if you get it on the wrong way, the wrong way trip. So yeah, most people, it's just way too speculative, right? But no risk, no reward. And right now, I'm not just emptying all my bags into Bitcoin or anything. I mean, for me, I've always taken a dollar cost average approach, which I just invest a little bit of money week to week or every couple weeks, depends on my current financial situation. And well, yeah, I mean, unless the internet shuts down, there's a lot of reasons that Bitcoin could be a good thing coming forward. I mean, not that I want to start like evangelizing Bitcoin here, but any digital asset is pretty much what we're already currently using primarily for a majority of all transactions. So less and less is cash being used, and cash is the ultimate money laundering thing because there's no trail, right? I mean, when you hand someone a briefcase of cash, I mean, not that I've ever done such a thing. There's no digital history. there's no record of that action being taken. So historically, drug money laundering and illegal activities, cash is king, man. So when you're looking at being a regulative agency like a government, and you want to completely shut the door on all transactions that you don't have some type of awareness of, maybe for taxation and also maybe for curbing illegal activity, and maybe just know every single little detail about everyone, because that's the age we live in. We want to know what you looked at, where do you go, where do you walk, where do you shop, what do you talk about, and it's just the age of selling your information. So cash can be the final solution to knowing every little thing about you. I mean, your phone already communicates the Google, Amazon, everything that you're saying in live time. I mean, it tracks your location. I mean, if you have a Fitbit, it's tracking your heart rate, your beats per minute, how many steps a day, where you stepped, what time of day do you go to these places. Now let's add every dollar you spend. I mean, the banks already pretty much have a good record of 80 to 90% of that, but take away the cash, and now we have a digital ledger that takes track of every cent spent, and now we have government oversight of it all. And you could see the enticitiveness, you could see the attractiveness of what I'm proposing here. Just mentally kind of drawing a picture, and no one's to say that Bitcoin will be, that asset that the world will adopt to have one type of financial system or one currency that we can all use and send to each other across the world, no matter where you are, as long as you got an internet connection. There's no borders with it. I mean, there's a lot of different good values to it. I mean, one, there could be some, there's always pros and cons to anything. So, one, everything on Bitcoin is tracked and can be tracked back to your address, which is not necessarily associated with your name, depending on where you've signed up for exchanges and all that stuff. Because if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange and then you have your name and you put all your information on there, well, they sure as heck know who has that Bitcoin. Um, and not to say they have different layers to track the different transactions. So you have to do a couple things to be completely anonymous in terms of holding and selling Bitcoin. But that's not the purpose for most people. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that people get into it. One is the freedom aspect, the liberty aspect. Another one is if you see like currencies in less fortunate countries diminish their value by like 30 times in a year. I mean, it's just it's like a tragedy, right? I mean, to see a dollar be worth, you know, like barely anything. What's that do to people? What's that do to the country? I mean, it's not fair. And to have some asset that isn't subjugated to the internal laws of the government, I mean, is a very attractive thing when you're in third world third world countries or countries that there's a lot of uncertainty. There is some attractiveness there. So the biggest thing about Bitcoin is that it takes out the middleman. People can transact person to person. It's like almost sending e-transfers to people, but the bank's not involved. And I mean, well, as of now, the bank doesn't really cause any of us too much strife, but the bank is always taking fees, man, and they're always taking their little cut. And sometimes, if you want to send money across the ocean, the bank can't do it at night. They have to wait till normal business hours. So there's a lot of different situations and settings that, you know, the cryptocurrency, the technology here can usurp the current system. And realistically, I mean, the banks will adopt a digital type of cryptocurrency system anyway. It's just a matter of, are they going to use it as pairings to existing Bitcoin, or are they going to try to have some type of currency instilled on their own? You could see even earlier this year, there was Facebook tried to come up with a cryptocurrency called Libra. They had all their partnerships with, I can't remember all of them, but you could look it up, Libra. And then the US government was just like, no way, man. Like, we can't just let you print money. We're already doing it. We already have the clown in town. So, yeah, the last thing the US government wanted to do is give Mark Zuckerberg the keys to the printing press and start printing digital currency that could be swapped with, you know, real US tender or other more real assets like gold and silver. So, you can see that if you can see the lips being licked of the major corporations, and they see the potential of how much value and potential is in, let's say, a new form of currency. I mean, new form of money. I mean, and there's got to be some interest there from these bigger companies, and eventually the technology will grow too. It will get better and better and better. This is just the infancy stage of something that can serve a lot of value. And I mean, it has the pros and cons. I mean, some of the pros is it gives people more freedom from bigger financial institutions. I mean, it makes you responsible for your own money. You have no one to blame but yourself. And I mean, there's still some cons as it's kind of it's the user interface kind of sucks. You have to kind of spend some time and get educated in it to be involved at these earlier phases. I mean, it's been getting better and better and better through here, all the interface and the user friendliness of everything, but it can only get better. So that's why it was really tough to get in back here. You basically got to be, you know, you have to have some temerity to get your hands in right here. And there's just so many barriers to entry depending on what country you're in. So yeah, I kind of went on a big tangent there with Bitcoin, but yeah, I think, well, obviously I'm in it for a reason, and you can see here it kind of had the same You can see the similarity here. Bitcoin back in 2013 had its last bull market. It reached kind of like $1,000, and it had a huge dump back down. Yeah, I think this was the Mount Gox um, exchange scam. So a big exchange shut down, stole a bunch of funds. I mean, Bitcoin died right here. So these big wicks are due to the extreme volatility because there's not enough market cap. So when people sell 100 million, it just completely dumps the market price down. Regardless, you can kind of see the trend. We've had this downward parallel channel, a little bit shorter of one. So I drew this a little bit more narrow one. And then we kind of had a little breakout here. We started going back up, and I just drew a couple different channels here because I think I made a comparison to, where is this thing here? You always just try to draw comparisons, right? I mean, see if history is going to repeat itself. It doesn't always, but when you look at something like this and like that, I mean, that's what I was kind of looking at to see if there was kind of a shorter parallel channel down, which then created another bigger parallel channel, which eventually did get broken out of. And I think I was trying to make the comparison that this little box right here was somewhat like what we're recreating. I mean, we all have to do our own little X's and O's to convince ourselves that we're making good decisions. But yeah, like I'm not fretting during this time. It's only looks like better opportunity to try to get your bags in. So looking at here, I mean, you would have felt pretty crappy accumulating Bitcoin during this whole time frame up until it breaks its all-time high and then has its next little run here. And that's what I've been waiting for. I mean, I basically said, hey, I'm going to wait this whole time, whatever how long it is, before we have this next run. And it just kind of is one of these assets that repeats itself. It goes up, it went up, goes down, kind of crashes, goes up, comes down, kind of crashes, comes up, and it just has this kind of history of doing it. It just kind of goes up, hits the top, ends the bull market. We kind of have this downward action. It drops quite a bit. It stays above its last high, and then we kind of have this period, and eventually we break that line, and now we can have this another new bull run, and then we come back down, and we lose a whole bunch of value, and then we have this period, and then we come back up, and that's not just Bitcoin, that's just markets in general. So if you look at any like emotion of market cycles, that's what you'll see. You'll see the periods of the emotions. They'll say euphoria, especially at the top. People are euphoric, like happy, excited, euphoric, and then greedful, and then disbelief, sadness, anger, and then this like hopelessness, and then yeah, and then like disbelief again, like this can't happen, and back here we got denied. We weren't even finished this thing, so a lot of people thought that we were coming back up sooner than later here because this was quite the rally out of nowhere, and that's where potentially. That's where I've heard other people saying that this little rise right here that came out of nowhere, 300% in just like a few months, that's where all the money was made that made that huge dumping candle. So this was probably a little bit artificial right there. So that probably hurt it in reality. It probably should have went like this a little bit more. But it coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? I mean, I think I messed up some of the price action, having this huge pump based off of that potentially like the scam, that plus token scam in China. So I kind of just rambled on, didn't do much price action, but looking at this here, yeah, looking back at the 3 hour, we can kind of see, it'll be interesting to watch a little bit, something to look at that might have some positive up movement in this time. I mean, I'm not really throwing my bags at it, but historically, there's a lot of, I mean, there's not too many things that you can say, yeah, this is what I'm really confident in. I haven't really taken a big look at everything, but when you see everything's dropped down quite a bit, I mean, at least Apple's kind of trying to keep this channel here. But yeah, we've had a lot of volume here right now. A couple of huge sell volumes right there, but we're having some buys here too. So some people are buying, and really Apple's not going to close down. I mean, when people are stuck at home, they're going to be using their phones. So I don't think like these tech ones are going to be hit as hard as some of the other stocks. Like Amazon. We'll see what happens. There's less reason for these to have really bad recessions versus the financial sector, something like this, or just more high risk stocks. Let's see what the old VIX is doing today. Then I think I'll let it down. But so yeah, I think we're hitting peak levels yesterday, 85, which is just crazy that we're in that phase. I mean, just look at that. The fear is almost the highest it's ever been. So hopefully this doesn't keep going up, because it shows that's why it's so volatile. People are just scared. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt right now. And well, if you can just be calm and collective and see the bigger overall trend and not get flabbergasted in the moment, there's a lot of potential right now. So I'm gonna just keep a little bit of a day-to-day thing here, just my daily thoughts, and this is just mostly for me and my parents, and whoever else wants to listen. But spending the time is really the only solution to being a good at anything. So if you don't put in the time, don't expect to be good at something. Don't expect to be a good basketball player when you play basketball once every 10 years. Don't expect to be good at golf when you don't golf very much. So that's just some of the expectations I have. And yeah, once this kind of figures itself out, we'll see what this happens. But anyway, hopefully everyone has a good day. Talk to you later.